The scene opens on a quiet, lonely street, the silence only broken by the occasional breeze rustling the leaves. A man walks slowly, his face weary, his shoulders burdened with the weight of unspoken thoughts. His gaze is fixed on the ground, lost in his own world. In a world where voices are drowned by the noise of everyday life, some souls find themselves drifting in silence. He's one of them. Life has a way of testing us, pushing us to the edges where all we can do is hold on. But for some, holding on means more than just surviving, it means existing in the shadows of the past, in the silence of forgotten dreams. The man stops at a small, rundown apartment building. His tired eyes glance up briefly at the worn-out structure before he sighs and enters. Inside, the apartment is dimly lit, the air heavy with the loneliness that fills every corner of the room. This is where he spends most of his days, alone, trapped in the memories of things he can't change, of a life that doesn't seem to care anymore. The world moves on, and so must he. But deep inside, there's a part of him that's lost, a part that aches for something more, something real. He doesn't know it yet, but life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. The man walks through the apartment, past a clutter of old, forgotten belongings. He moves mechanically, as if he's been here before, as if it's all a routine. But then, a soft noise from the corner catches his attention, a low whimper, almost unheard over the silence. He freezes, his eyes narrowing as he looks over. The camera shifts to reveal a small, scruffy dog sitting by the door, looking up with wide, expectant eyes. It's clear the dog has been waiting for someone who might just change everything. And then there it is. A sound so simple yet so profound. A dog, a creature whose love is unconditional, whose loyalty knows no bounds. It doesn't matter how many scars the man has, or how many walls he's built around himself. The dog doesn't see the pain. The dog sees only a soul in need of healing. The man approaches slowly, his face a mix of confusion and reluctance. The dog's tail wags slightly as it looks up at him, as if saying, "I'm here for you." This is the moment. The moment when two worlds collide. One full of hurt, the other full of hope. And though he doesn't know it yet, this small creature will become his reason to fight. To feel. To love again. Sometimes, the smallest beings can bring the biggest change. Days pass, and the man starts to grow accustomed to the presence of the dog. At first, it's only a routine, feeding, a quick pat on the head, and a few quiet moments spent in each other's company. The dog, with its boundless energy and unwavering loyalty, is always there, waiting for his attention. The man, still distant and unsure, doesn't know what to make of this sudden change. But something about the dog's persistence tugs at him. It's a feeling he hasn't had in a long time, something that needs him. The dog follows him everywhere. When he goes to the kitchen, it sits at his feet, looking up expectantly, tail wagging in excitement. When he sinks into the couch, the dog curls up beside him, pressing its head against his leg, as if seeking comfort. There's no judgment, no questions, only a quiet understanding between them. The man begins to notice the small things. The way the dog always seems to know when he's had a bad day, the way it tries to nudge him out of his thoughts with a playful bark or a nuzzle. It's a silent communication, one that doesn't need words but speaks louder than any conversation he's had in years. One afternoon, the man sits at the window, staring out at the city. His face reflects a lifetime of sorrow, of unanswered questions. The dog, sensing the heaviness in the air, climbs up onto the windowsill next to him and rests its head on his shoulder. It's a simple act, but it speaks volumes. The man looks down at the dog, his hand trembling as he reaches out to gently stroke its fur. For the first time in a long while, he feels something stir inside him, something that feels like warmth, like the first rays of sunlight after a storm. The dog doesn't need anything from him but his presence. And somehow, that's enough. The days turn into weeks, and the man starts to change. Slowly, imperceptibly at first. He becomes more aware of the world around him. The small things, the sound of birds chirping outside the window, the smell of fresh rain in the air, the simple joy of a dog chasing its tail, begin to bring a sense of peace he hasn't known for years. The dog is there through it all. It doesn't ask for anything more than a little attention, a scratch behind the ears, or a walk outside. Yet, in return, it gives him something far more precious, a reminder that he's still alive, still capable of feeling. One day, the man takes the dog for a walk in the park. As they walk along the path, the dog leads the way, its tail wagging energetically. The man can't help but smile, watching the dog's carefree nature, its joy in the simplest things. He feels a strange urge to run with the dog, to break free from the weight of his past. And so, without thinking, he starts to jog alongside the dog. At first, it's clumsy, hesitant, but soon, he finds a rhythm. The wind rushes past them, the world blurring into a whirl of colors and sounds. The dog barks in excitement, and for the first time in what feels like forever, the man laughs. A full, genuine laugh that escapes from deep within him. It's in that moment, as they both pause to catch their breath, that the man realizes something. He's not alone anymore. The dog has filled a void he didn't even know existed. It has brought him back from the edge, from the numbness that had consumed him for so long. The bond between them grows stronger each day. With every shared glance, every small act of kindness, they communicate without words, each knowing exactly what the other needs. The dog doesn't ask for anything extravagant. All it asks for is love, and in return, it gives more than the man ever expected. The transformation is slow, but it's undeniable. The man begins to smile more, to talk more, to engage with the world outside. He's no longer trapped in the cage of his own thoughts. He's no longer defined by his past. The dog has shown him that it's okay to move forward, to let go of the pain, to embrace the possibility of something better. And with every step they take together, the man realizes that he's learning to live again. As the days go by, the man starts to believe that he's truly healing. The pain, once so constant and overwhelming, feels like it's finally beginning to subside. But healing isn't always linear. Sometimes it's a battle that feels endless, an invisible war fought in the quietest moments. The tears flow freely now, but they're not just tears of sorrow. They're tears of gratitude, of appreciation for the time they had together. He whispers softly to the dog, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you, for everything. I love you." The man starts to notice the cracks again. The flashes of anger that seem to come out of nowhere, the overwhelming sense of loneliness that creeps up when he least expects it. He had hoped the dog would be the cure for everything, but the truth is, the scars go deeper than he realized. One evening, after a long day, the man sits alone in his apartment, his thoughts turning darker. The weight of his past, the losses he's endured, begins to surface. He's tired, exhausted, and the isolation feels unbearable once more. He stares at the bottle of pills on the table, an old habit, a fleeting escape. The world around him feels distant and cold. For a moment, he wonders if the darkness will ever let him go. But just as his hand reaches for the bottle, the dog enters the room. It's subtle, but its presence is undeniable. The dog doesn't bark or whimper, it simply walks over and sits by his feet, looking up with those knowing eyes. It's the quiet comfort the man needs, the grounding force that stops him from slipping further. He freezes, looking down at the dog. The weight of the moment presses on him. His fingers hover over the pills for a beat longer, but then he slowly pulls his hand back. He looks at the dog and, for the first time in a long while, he feels a flicker of hope, a reason to fight back against the darkness. But that hope doesn't last long. The following weeks bring new struggles, different from the ones he expected. It's not just the pain of his past that haunts him, but the fear of his future. His job is in jeopardy. He's been late one too many times, disconnected and absent in the face of his responsibilities. The loneliness is suffocating again. The world doesn't seem to care that he's trying to change, that he's trying to be better for the dog. It's as though he's invisible, just another person passing through life with no real connection. And then, one night, the dog goes missing. The man wakes up in a panic, the house eerily quiet. He searches frantically, calling the dog's name, his voice growing more desperate with each passing minute. He runs down the stairs and into the street, his heart pounding. It's like the air has been sucked out of his lungs. For the first time, he realizes just how much the dog has come to mean to him. The dog isn't just a companion, it's the lifeline he never knew he needed, the only source of light in a life that's been filled with shadows. Without it, the world seems even darker, colder. He doesn't know how long he's been searching, but eventually, he finds the dog curled up in an alleyway, shivering in the cold. The man kneels down and pulls the dog into his arms, overwhelmed with relief and guilt. The dog looks up at him with trust in its eyes, as if asking for nothing more than to be loved, to be safe. Tears well up in the man's eyes as he holds the dog tightly, realizing the depth of the bond they've formed. It's not just the dog that's been healing him, it's the way the dog has taught him to care, to feel again, to open up even when it feels impossible. The dog has become the reason he keeps going, the reason he can't give up. The next morning, the man wakes up with a new sense of purpose. He doesn't have all the answers, and he still has a long way to go, but he knows one thing for sure: he can't do it alone. He needs the dog, just as much as the dog needs him. The challenges aren't over, they may never be. But for the first time in a long time, the man feels like he has something worth fighting for. And no matter what, he's not giving up on the dog. He's not giving up on himself. One evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, casting a soft, golden glow over the world, the man feels a sense of calm he hasn't known in years. He and the dog are walking in the park, just like they've done so many times before. The dog trots ahead, its tail wagging with boundless energy, while the man follows, a contented smile on his face. For the first time in a long time, he feels at peace. His life has been slowly picking up again. He's been taking better care of himself, his job is improving, and he's starting to rebuild connections with the world around him. The dog has been his anchor, the constant source of love that has kept him grounded through it all. But then, as they near the edge of the park, the dog suddenly stops. It looks back at the man, its body tense, its ears perked up. The man, startled by the sudden change, calls out to the dog, but it doesn't respond. The dog starts to back away, growling softly, its eyes wide with fear. The man's heart skips a beat. He steps closer, trying to coax the dog, but before he can reach it, a car speeds around the corner. The dog, in a panic, darts across the street. Time seems to slow as the man watches in horror, his breath caught in his chest. "Charlie!" he screams, his voice a desperate cry. The car screeches to a halt, but it's too late. The dog is lying motionless in the street, its body crumpled in a way that makes the man's heart shatter. He runs to it, his legs barely carrying him, his mind screaming in disbelief. He drops to his knees, cradling the dog in his arms, tears streaming down his face. The world around him disappears. There's only the dog, the stillness, and the crushing weight of loss. The dog, once so full of life, now looks so fragile in his arms. The man's world crashes down around him. For the first time since he found the dog, he feels completely alone. The grief is overwhelming, suffocating. The thing he loved most in this world is gone, just like everything else he's ever lost. He tries to call for help, but his voice is weak, distant. There's nothing to be done. The dog's soft breathing, once a comfort, has stopped. The man presses his face into the dog's fur, feeling the cold emptiness take over. He can't understand it. Why had this happened? Why was he being tested like this, when he had just started to rebuild his life? The emotional pain feels unbearable. It's like a weight in his chest, a void that no amount of tears can fill. The man grips the dog tighter, as if trying to will it back to life, but he knows it's too late. His hands shake, his heart aches, and in that moment, he feels like he's losing everything all over again. But then, something strange happens. The dog's body, still and silent, seems to stir for a brief moment. The man freezes, holding his breath, as a faint flicker of life appears in the dog's eyes. It's so small, so subtle, but it's there. In that instant, the man realizes something. The dog may be gone, but its spirit, its love, will never leave him. The dog has shown him what it means to truly live again. To embrace the pain, the joy, the vulnerability. The dog's impact on his life is immeasurable. And no matter what happens, the man knows that he will carry that love with him, always. As he sits there, holding the dog, the man feels a quiet strength rising within him. It's not the same as before, the pain is still there, but now there's something else too. A sense of resolve, a feeling that he has been forever changed by this bond. The dog has given him more than just love, it has given him a new understanding of life, of loss, of healing. And with that realization, the man stands up, carrying the dog in his arms one last time, determined to move forward, to live in honor of the love they shared. The days that follow are a blur. The man feels as if he's walking through a fog, his every step heavy, his heart still aching with the emptiness left behind. The apartment feels colder now, quieter. The absence of the dog is like a hollow space in the air, a place that will never be filled. He finds himself sitting in the same spot by the window, staring out at the world as it continues on, oblivious to the profound loss he feels. The park they used to walk in together seems distant, as though it belongs to another time, another life. He still can't fully believe that the dog is gone, but he knows that he must find a way to keep going. One evening, as the sky turns a soft shade of pink, he walks through the park alone, the wind carrying the scent of the earth and the trees. The space feels empty without the dog's excited energy, without the sound of paws trotting beside him. But as he walks, something shifts inside him, a quiet sense of peace begins to settle in. It's not the same peace he had before, when everything felt certain. This is a different kind of peace, a more profound one. The man stops at the spot where they used to sit together. He closes his eyes for a moment, letting the memories wash over him, the sound of the dog's playful barks, the way it would nuzzle against his leg, the quiet companionship they shared. He realizes then, with a bittersweet clarity, that the dog had given him more than he could have ever expected. It wasn't just about the love or the companionship. It was the way the dog had helped him face his own darkness, the way it had pulled him out of his isolation and shown him that there was still goodness in the world. The dog had never needed anything from him except to be loved, yet in return, it had given him a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life, that love is a choice, and that no matter how broken or lost we feel, we are always capable of healing. As the man stands there, the weight of his grief begins to shift, transforming into something else. It's not that the pain has gone away, it will always be a part of him. But now, he feels an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the time they had, for the bond that had shaped his soul in ways he never imagined possible. The man starts to walk again, this time with a slower, more measured pace. He's not running away from the past, but neither is he chained to it. With each step, he feels the strength growing inside him, the strength to keep moving forward, to live in a way that honors the love he had shared with the dog. And as he walks through the park, a soft breeze picks up, rustling the leaves in the trees. He smiles faintly, remembering the dog's joy in the simple things, its boundless energy, its unwavering love. The smile isn't a big one, but it's real, a small sign that he's beginning to heal, that he's finally ready to let go of the darkness that once consumed him. The world feels brighter now, not because the pain has disappeared, but because he knows that the love he shared with the dog is still alive within him. It has shaped him, molded him, and given him the courage to face the future with hope. In the distance, he hears a dog bark, a distant echo of the joy he once knew. He stops, takes a deep breath, and closes his eyes for a moment, a quiet tear slipping down his cheek. He's not the same man who walked into that apartment all those months ago. He's stronger, more open, and more alive. The dog has shown him that life, no matter how difficult, is still worth living. The journey isn't over, it never truly is. But the man now understands something he hadn't before. Sometimes, healing doesn't come in the way we expect. Sometimes it comes from the most unexpected places, from a love so pure, so unbreakable, that it changes us forever. And as he continues his walk, his heart feels a little lighter, the weight of his grief softened by the knowledge that the dog's spirit will always be with him. As the man walks down the path, the last light of the day fades behind him. He doesn't hurry anymore, there's no need to rush. The world is no longer an endless series of obstacles. It's a place filled with possibility, filled with moments of connection that he never truly appreciated before. He has learned that healing takes time, but with love, it's always possible. He stops at the park bench, the one where they used to sit together. He takes a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment, and in the quiet stillness of the evening, he remembers. He remembers the joy in the dog's eyes, the way it would chase after anything that moved, the way it loved without question. It wasn't just the dog that had changed his life. It was the way the dog had shown him how to love again. Love, the kind that asks for nothing but gives everything in return. Companionship, the kind that doesn't demand, but simply exists, offering comfort when the world feels too heavy. A bond that transcends words, a connection that doesn't need to be spoken to be understood. In that moment, he realizes that pets, these beautiful, loyal creatures, have an extraordinary ability to change lives. They don't ask for much, but they give us everything they have. They heal wounds we didn't know were there, help us face fears we never thought we could confront, and show us that love is, above all, the greatest gift we have to offer. The man looks around one last time, his gaze softening as he sees other people walking with their own pets, their own companions. He smiles, understanding that this is the gift the dog gave him, a reminder that we're never truly alone as long as we open our hearts. There is always something, or someone, who will be there, offering us the kind of love that changes everything. He knows now that even when the world feels lost, the love of a pet can bring us back. It can bring us home. And as he walks away from the park, the man carries with him the lessons the dog taught him, that love never fades, that companionship is a bond that lasts beyond the surface, and that healing is possible, even when it seems out of reach. Because, in the end, it's love that makes us whole. It's love that carries us forward. And as long as we hold on to that love, we will always find our way.